Acton In Focus is brought to you by Kitchen Outfitters.
Welcome to this special edition of Acton In Focus, celebrating Juneteenth. I'm Vivian Kobusingye Birchall, your host. Juneteenth is a day of jubilee. We as a country honor Juneteenth to bring our history to light because those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Juneteenth is the oldest standing holiday that commemorates the freeing of enslaved persons in America. It started back on June 19, 1865, when Major General Gordon Granger of the Union Army valiantly found Galveston, Texas, and proclaimed freedom of the enslaved people. Texas was the last of the Confederate states to have institutionalized slavery, and 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was enacted on January 1st of 1863. Texas did not follow the Emancipation Proclamation as there was too small of a Union presence to enforce the presidential order. In fact, Abraham Lincoln, who signed the emancipation of slavery, had already been assassinated before the slaves in Texas were free. Combined with the surrender of the Confederate General Lee, General Granger's regiment's presence single-handedly beat the resistance that was still present. There have been many debates on the reasoning as to why Texas was still behind the times. What happened next is important. General Granger issued the General Order No. 3. He directly stated that Texas had to free all enslaved persons. There was an instant celebration, and the day of June 19th was dubbed Juneteenth. But what did this freedom come with? Joy, relief, homelessness, income inequality, search for loved ones who had been harshly separated, violence from those who still looked at Black people as inferior human beings. It also meant that the Black people started to process of building structures for themselves because the existing structures were not designed to include them as free humans equal before all. They had to innovatively create economic systems, education systems, housing, interaction with the law enforcement, and every other aspect of life. They had to create partnerships with allies to help them navigate through this new way of life without masters. I have read some of the letters from the National Archives where families were looking for one another, so that they could reconnect. However, regardless of all these obstacles, this day was celebrated in Galveston and Texas for decades until the 1900s. There was a sharp decline in the celebration and remembrance of Juneteenth in the early part of the 20th century due to the cultural and economic factors. There was little being done to remember June 19th. Schools told children that January 1st, 1863, the day of the Emancipation Proclamation being enacted, was the last day of slavery, but in reality, it was 2.5 years later. The Great Depression also had a hand in pushing down the celebrations, as African Americans were not allowed to get time off work. The 1950s and 1960s saw the resurgence of the Juneteenth celebrations with the rise of the civil rights movement. One of the most notable instances was in 1968 with the Poor People's March to Washington, D.C. On January 1st, 1980, Texas made Juneteenth a state holiday, and finally, on June 17, 2021, President Joe Biden made Juneteenth a national holiday. Juneteenth now means more than just the remembrance of freedom for enslaved people. It is widely supported by institutions and is widespread across schools, museums, towns, all over America. It is a day to celebrate and spread African American history and culture. It is a day that works toward the basic respect for all humans and an appreciation of African Americans as well as other races. It is also a day laden with good food and fun, and there are staple African American culture foods that tie into the identity of Juneteenth as barbecue and strawberry soda. So I hope you enjoyed and learned something from this special edition of Acton in Focus. A happy Juneteenth to everyone in our community. Thank you for watching. Till next time.